This week I am talking to Mark Wilcock, and Mark shares his journey, his very sad journey of becoming both mother and father overnight after his wife Katherine suddenly passed away, leaving him with his 8-month-old daughter. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of 50 Shades of Motherhood. Today we have a really special guest on, Mark Wilcock, who is a dad blogger, and we want to recognise that motherhood comes in all different shapes and sizes, and sometimes being a mum is also being a dad, and we want to recognise that. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you.
It's lovely to have you on here.
No problems. I'm happy to be here.
I'm looking forward to speaking to you. So tell us a bit about you to begin with, Mark.
A little bit about me. Well, where do I begin? I guess my opening line for me would be something like, life doesn't always go to plan. And if it would, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you, Carla. But yeah, I'm kind of here today just to kind of just talk about how my experience has affected me and how it's changed the way I parent and the things I do with my family now.
I'm really looking forward to having you on. Obviously, your journey. I mean, I found Mark on Facebook, and I knew that I wanted to speak to someone like you, Mark. But then when I read your blogs and stuff, honestly, I was just blown away, and I thought I need to speak to this guy. So that's why I reached out to you, because of your whole journey, and all of you listening, you'll understand as we get going on this. Okay. But Mark, obviously you're on this podcast because you're a parent as well. So yeah. Tell us a bit about your parenting journey then.
Yeah, so a parenting journey. Well, before I became a parent, basically. I met my wife Katherine back in 2011 through we worked in the same office, shall we say, and we kind of just got together.
How old were you, Mark?
I was 31.
Yeah. So you were ready to settle down.
Oh, I was a bit of a late bloomer, shall we say? Yeah. I just hadn't met the right one basically for a long time, and obviously Katherine came along and. We got together, and as the years went on, by 2015 we were married.
Did you get engaged quite quick, or was it?
No, it was about a year before. It was 2014 we got married, so we kind of didn't want it to be a long engagement. So 12 months later, we were jetting off to get married abroad.
Oh, where did you go abroad?
We got married in Hawaii.
No way! Oh my God, I'd love to go there. there. So when, after you've got married, Mark, did you and Katherine decide that you wanted children straight away, or did you want to wait a while? How did that work?
I think we kind of talked about it after the wedding, and then we just tried. We didn't put any pressure on ourselves. We just sort of, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah. And
then about 3 months after it happened, so about a year later, little Margot was born in 2016.
Oh my God, that's lovely. So was it a normal kind of pregnancy? Everything went to plan?
Yeah, everything went fine. No problems. Margot's birth and everything else after was fine. Yeah, she was a good baby, should we say? Very quiet.
Was she? I know that's what you want, actually. Quiet, yeah. That's handy. Yeah. Obviously, the reason we want to talk to you as well today is obviously about your journey, so hopefully we'll be able to help other parents or other people that have been through similar with their story as well. So at 37, you actually, sadly, I don't know how I'm going to hold this episode together, but you sadly lost your wife, Katherine. Yeah. And can you tell us a bit about what actually happened?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I always kind of describe it when people start listening to what I'm going to say. It's kind of like the unthinkable. You kind of think this wouldn't happen to you, but obviously there's people out there that it does. So literally, it was just one day it was a May bank holiday in 2017, and we just literally went out for a walk on the Monday bank holiday as a family of three, and obviously little did I know that the next time I'd probably come home, it'd be just the two of us, me and my daughter. So we went for a walk, and my daughter, Katherine, started saying that she wasn't feeling too good. She was having like dizzy spells and things like that. She obviously needed to sit down. So as we were going for this walk on this nice hot summer's day, we found this sort of pub which was near our house. So we went in, it was pretty quiet. And she just sort of sat down, and I left Margot with her with the pram, and she was just happy, sat there. I went to go and get her like a glass of water, and by the time I got back, she'd had a cardiac arrest, and her heart had just stopped, and she was just lifeless. So obviously, the panic sets in and things like that. So there was a lot of getting people to help. Luckily enough, there was an off-duty nurse there who was helping with CPR and things like that. They're waiting for the paramedics to come. And there was CPR for a long time. So
I imagine it's just all a blur, like the whole thing.
Yeah, when there's that lack of oxygen to the brain, you kind of, even at that point in time, you kind of know it's not good. Even if they manage to get a heartbeat back and things like that. So yes, that was it. Really, that was the sort of the start of the physical and mental pain. Really.
Oh, that's from that day. Sad. Honestly, it just breaks my heart. I think, especially like the fact you were just going out for a walk, just the three of you, like a nice family walk. I mean, it could happen to anyone at any day, and I think it's important for people to remember that. I mean, how old was your little girl at the time?
She was 8 months at that time.
Oh my God!
So she was only a little baby.
Oh God!
Which it's kind of a bit strange when I think about that, because even though it was like over 3 years ago, I kind of think, well, it sounds really bad, but I'm glad she was so young when it happened, because her being there, I didn't want to, she could have been a 4 or 5 year old and had this, that would have been the last memory of her mother, sort of thing. So,
oh God.
It was difficult at the time.
Did they take her to hospital then and try and help her there, or did it end?
Yeah, so they basically, in a nutshell, they managed to get her heart going very faintly, and then they had to put the body in an induced coma, basically. And then she was in that for about 4 days, and there was a lot of specialists, heart and chest specialists around, cardiologists and so on, and they used to take you into this room. I mean, a lot of people who may have lost their loved ones to things like cancer and other diseases and stuff will probably understand when I say this. They have this room on wards. I like to call it the doom room, because whenever you go in it, there's never any good news. It's always bad news. So we used to go into this room, and they used to give you updates. And basically, there was, like I was saying about the lack of oxygen to the brain, you kind of start getting into brain damage and stem damage and things like that, where it's like point of no return. So, but for me, when she had that cardiac arrest, that was the point. When she died for me, sort of thing, because she was literally just a shell of a former self when she was in a induced coma.
It must have been. I mean, God, I just can't even. The shock. I just can't even comprehend like how that must have been, because like it's just 1 minute they're there and you're talking and having a nice time, and the next that happens.
It's kind of like that, because you're in the reality of the way your world is, and then all of a sudden it's the way it is now, and you're not used to it. There was no warning. There's no, you've had no chance to say goodbye. You start thinking, my daughter didn't even know her. And you got all these other things going through your head. It's really hard. I mean,
you wouldn't even think to talk to her about something like that either, because like you're both so young. I mean, how old was Katherine when this happened?
She was 35.
Oh my God.
So she was only young.
I'm so sorry about that. It really, really upsets me when I listen to you talking about it. It's very, very sad. So obviously from there you had to kind of phone your parents, her parents, and let them know that what had happened, and she was in hospital and stuff. I mean, how did you cope with your little girl then? Did she just have to go to one of your parents and you had to be at the hospital at all times?
Yeah, I kind of only saw her briefly each day during that week, those 4 or 5 days. And obviously I had to kind of get myself together. It's really, really weird, because I was in absolute shock,
Oh God, I can't even imagine it, Mark. When you say it, it's something that I think happens to other people, and it could, and like you're living proof that actually no, you've probably maybe thought that before as well, and it's just oh God, it's awful. So obviously, after a couple of days, obviously, then did the doctors make the decision to turn off any support, or what
Yeah,
happened?
we had there was a little bit of good news that came out of it. There was we had a donor nurse came in, started having a conversation about would I consider offering, you know, organs, healthy organs to be donors and things, and I was a bit like, oh, I don't know.
God, yeah.
And then she found out that Katherine was already a donor, so she'd already listed what organs she wanted to give and all that. So she'd actually made that decision for me, which was good. Lo and behold, as months went on, you do actually sort of get a letter which describes not who the organs went to, but what and who. So if it was an older gentleman or a baby or a child, it kind of tells you. So, but they managed to split a liver into two. So it went to two people. It went to a woman who was the same age as it, and it went to a small baby as well who needed a liver transplant.
Oh,
so
do you know, that just sent shivers down me.
Yeah.
Like, how amazing is that? She is like saved two people's lives.
Yeah. So there was other things as well. There was other organ, pancreas, and that went to an older gentleman and things like that. So there was this big act of kindness out of it, which is typical Katherine, you know.
What was she like, Katherine?
She was a stick of dynamite. She was just fun to be around. She wasn't nasty. Always wanted to avoid confrontation. Very sort of inclusive of everyone. She was just a really, really nice person. I mean, you know, I couldn't do it justice with words if that makes sense. You know, but she had a lot of friends. I always judge people by the people they have around them, and she used to have a lot of nice friends, you know, around her. And I kind of thought, you know, nice people attract nice people, you know, that sort of stuff.
Do you know what? I always say that. It's funny actually, because people say, don't they, you are who your friends are a lot of the time. But that's amazing that she did that. So with the donors, then you didn't have to make that decision, because I imagine that is quite a horrible kind of situation to be put in if they were asking if they could give away parts of her body and you don't know what her wishes were. So that's amazing that she did that.
Yeah, there was a few things that were on the list that, I mean, anyone who's probably had to go through that in terms of donoring a partner or loved ones thing. One of the things that's on the form now, which I kind of laugh about now, was, you know, if it's kind of in the small print, if there's part of like eyes and things like that, can they go to a lab for research, basically, or this? And I had this vision in my head of like Katherine's eyes being opened up in a lab somewhere by some trainee doctor. And I'm like, no. Like, you know, because you're in that shock and that fear, and you're not having her eyes, you know, and things like that. So obviously there is a lot of a good outcome from research. Obviously, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, you know.
Of course, but I think when they're yours and, like, you know, you love them so much, you just don't want to think of anyone else having any of the parts at that time. But in the end, like, obviously that's been an amazing thing that she's been able to do. And did you ever get to the bottom of what caused this, Mark?
Basically a heart had to go to a specialist down in London where they do some tests on it, and but the coroners can't put a cause of death until they've had this sort of, you know, autopsy of the heart, and so they look for the vital signs of, you know, if there are any sort of medication that could have caused it, any sort of defects in the heart and stuff like that. And it came down to it being something called SADS, which is SADS, which is sudden arrhythmic death syndrome. It's where the heart, so the way your heart sort of works, and electrons pumping each side at a time, the blood around the body, when they fire at the same time together, they sort of cancel each other out. The electrons hit each other, and I'm not a doctor. I'm only saying what you've abbreviated from the papers, you know, and it's caused the heart to stop, and obviously cardiac arrest come in. But there are sort of signs that people have this from a younger age. And when I spoke to a few specialists, they asked me a few questions. You know, had Katherine ever fainted or done that? And before she met me, she said she had a few episodes where she fell down the stairs, where she fainted one day. And she used to be on these headache tablets, so she thought it was the side effects of these tablets she was on, and she left it at that. But when I was chatting to some specialists, they were like, no, that is a big sign that it was a heart that made her do that. So it kind of affects people quite young, between, I think it's like 13 up to like 35, 36. And it's like 12 a week, die from it in the UK.
Oh my God, that is heartbreaking, because you just don't hear about these really often, and it's important to raise awareness. And would
Definitely.
they have been able to pick that up if Katherine had gone to the doctors or anything?
Yeah, when the heart goes into an adult size, sort of around puberty age for a boy or a girl, they can't really check it when it's not fully developed, it's not a fully grown heart. It has to be an adult size. And yeah, you can go in and have ECGs and echo scans and things like that on the heart to sort of just to make sure it's functioning, pumping, the rhythm's correct. There's all sorts of things they check on.
Gosh.
But it's hereditary as well, this sort of thing. So obviously Margot's got to go through all these sort of checks, but at least we'll be on the ball with it.
Well, that's it. It is. It's just kind of using it and raising awareness about this thing. So if anyone thinks, if anyone's listening to this and they think, they could have any symptoms or anything, it's worth speaking to the doctor around that. So after obviously Katherine passed away, how was your life affected? Were your finances affected, or was obviously your life massively? You've just become you've become a dad and a mum overnight.
It's weird because at the beginning I kind of went into autopilot from the shock and everything else, and I became like really, really busy in the day, and overnight I came busy by being more dependent on drinking alcohol and stuff, just to kind of so in the day I wanted to fill my days with being busy, and I wanted at night just to drink, so I didn't have to feel like the full force of grief sort of thing. And I had all these questions floating around my head, like, why me, why her, what do I do next, how do I look after my baby, how do I look after myself, my own mental health, for example, and things like that. And me and Katherine, we were like a great team when she was alive, and we kind of shared the same sort of parenting philosophy. We kind of agreed on everything that we kind of read on topics and stuff. And obviously when she died, and I became a single parent, my sort of confidence took like a massive nosedive, and I started second guessing everything that I was doing for my child, and I was dead skeptical about the voice in my head. And
I bet you're like questioning everything that you do. Would you have done it this way? Am I doing it right? I mean, it's even hard for mums. Obviously, this is right. This podcast was created because mums struggle all the time, and a lot of people can forget about the dads. And my husband, he plays as much as a part in George's upbringing as I do, and it is very much equal, really. It's very much co-parenting. But if something happened to either of us, I can imagine all of a sudden that's all on you, and it's you just get everything. I bet you get dad guilt. I bet you get you just feel, am I doing everything right? Am I doing empire?
Do you know what I always say? People say, you're doing a great job and all this, but I always say, and I'll be honest, this is just my own personal opinion, but for me, single parenting absolutely sucks. Taking responsibility 24/7, without any breaks, and obviously with me trying to grieve and mental issues going on, it was a really bad time. And I had to deal with nighttime, I had teething, feeding, moving to solids, walking, talking, all by myself, and I just didn't really get much sleep at night because of everything that was, the night time was my time to get my thoughts in order.
I bet that was even worse because you're always on the go constantly, so you never actually have time to think, how do I actually feel about this? I mean, was she still on maternity leave then at this point then? Was she just about to go back, or was she just off?
She was still off. She was due to go back soon, but obviously she'd accrued quite a lot of leave, so she was going to go back on a part-time basis for a few more months.
Oh God.
But so
did you have to kind of leave work then, or how did you manage the childcare and day to day getting through life? I mean, I struggle as it is. I've got childcare. I mean, we have preschool, and I've got Danny, and I struggle day to day. So God knows how you must have got through this day.
Yeah, I did struggle. I mean, work were really good. They gave me 6 months off work on full pay, which was unheard of in a lot of places. But obviously, I didn't actually start grieving till the 6 month time. So I ended up going back to work just as I just discovered how to grieve. So I was sat in my car crying my eyes out every morning before I even went into the office. And but I had a house to pay. I had nursery fees. there
On
was
one wage now as
yeah,
well.
one wage, and I had to come home, and then I had this plan on like it was like Tuesday to Thursday. It was just housework every night, preparing foods, freezing it, making sure shopping was done, and cleaning clothes. I don't know, I just did everything. I just made it work, and plus I wanted to do it because it kept me busy and it stopped me thinking about all the grief and that, which is probably not the right thing. I shouldn't have done that.
I bet. I mean, I bet it's hard because, like, friends and stuff. I mean, God, my situation is no comparison to you, but like, I lost my twins quite a few months ago, and that was during pregnancy. And but I mean, people just don't know what to say, and sometimes it's a case of like, oh, can I do anything? And of course, you being a proud man as you are and a proud dad, you'd be like, no, don't. I'm fine. And then it's just you secretly you probably sometimes don't even realize probably that you actually need help.
Sometimes well, that's one of the things, but when you're grieving, like people always say to you, I always found people would come to me and go, let me know if you need anything, and I'd be like, oh thanks, you just got out of that one. At the time when my to-do list is as busy as possible, you want me to think of something that you can do for me. So I used to say to them, and this, you'll probably laugh at this. I used to say to him, come round and clean my bathroom for me. And people would go, oh, are you joking? I'm like, no, I'm serious. I want you to come round and clean my bathroom because I've got a house to run. My back garden's looking like Jurassic Park. You need to get me back footing. And you know what? People really started thanking me. They started saying, oh, I feel like I've helped you. And I'm like, you have? They're like, because there's nothing I can say or do to make it better for you. And I was like, yeah, but you can do things for me. Instead of bringing a toy round for Margot or some flowers for my front room to go with the other 50 pairs, come round and make me a lasagna that'll do me for 3 nights of the week. These little things, and people started doing it, and it really helped me. And I say to people now, these are things you should do.
Good for you for saying that, because that was one thing for me. One of my best friends, she actually left meals for the full week outside, and I was like, I didn't ask for them or anything, and it was just like it. Honestly, it made me cry because I was just like, this is just amazing. I wouldn't have eaten. Danny and he wouldn't have eaten. George and Danny had probably ended up on McDonald's all week or whatever. And it really does make a big difference. So with all that then, did you find that your finances, I mean, did you have life insurance or anything like that in place?
No, we're really unwell. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's not going to happen to me again. We don't need life insurance because we're in our 30s, we're indestructible. It's got that. We had that mentality. I mean, obviously, my whole perspective on the whole thing's changed now. I have life insurance, I have a will, things like that. But at the time when Katherine died, we didn't have anything. She didn't have. Well, the only one thing she did have was a really good pension, which had kind of helped with a lot of the bills.
Does that kick in if someone passes away? Do you get help with that then?
Yeah, well, with ours, we had a government scheme one because we worked in a university.
Oh yeah.
So it had survivors benefits as well for your spouse and for your child, for any dependent children. So there was ongoing finance of that, which has really helped.
Thank God.
But in terms of, she didn't have a will, so I had to fight for probate on everything.
I know, and when you're married, you do think like naturally, oh yeah, well, if something happens to me, Danny just gets everything, or vice versa. But it is a bit more complicated because obviously you're not that you want to think about this, or hopefully you'll never, it'll never come up. But then when you're left on your own, I imagine then you'll have to think about, well, what happens to my little girl if something happens to me now? And it's all those little things. Oh, it's just
that's everything in place. But I mean, it's one of them. I have conversations with other people who ask me questions similar to that, and I always say to them, do you insure your car? And they're going, yeah. And do you insure yourself when you go on holiday? They go, yeah. And I go, do you insure your phone? They go, yeah. I go, what about insuring yourself? And they're like, well, I might do it when I'm a bit older. And I'm like, no, you need to do it now because it's cheaper now. It's like, what is it, £15-20 or something a month?
Oh, yeah.
You'd probably spend that in the pub on a Friday night.
Or a pizza,
exactly.
I mean,
so I started calling it love insurance is the word I like to use it now rather than life insurance. You should rebrand it.
I like that. I totally agree. And it's not about you; it's about the people that you leave. But I know as a partnership, it's quite difficult because you have to kind of agree, both of you, like, oh, it is something that we need to do and stuff like that. But thankfully you were in a position that you were able to kind of, were you able to keep your house and stuff like that, I'm guessing then? And
we were, another thing, we didn't have anything protection on the house, so the mortgage just went straight over to me, and I was like, no. But you just got to do it, haven't you? You don't have a choice.
And your employer sounds like absolutely amazing.
Oh, they were unbelievable. I honestly think I probably couldn't have got to where I am now without the help that they've done, especially professionally in work as well, helping me with workloads and my own mental health and things like that. Like, they've been really, really good, and there's not a lot of employers out there like that from what I've heard and what I've read. But one of the other things I kind of talk about is I think it's really interesting that people don't really talk about death a lot with the spouses and what their wishes are for the child and things like that, because there's a lot of stuff that I didn't have from Katherine, so I was kind of pioneering it myself. What should I do for Margot when she's this age, or what school should I put her to? Should I get a christened? We didn't have these conversations. So and another thing I would say to people now, if you get a will, especially in this day and age, if you use a cloud backup system for your photos, share the password in your will. Because you've got all these photos of your child and your baby and everything locked away, and you can't get into them. So luckily enough, I managed to get Margot's, but I always say to people, don't forget the password, because only you know it. If you die, it goes with you.
Oh, so God, yeah, of course. No,
that's young mums and dads now. Yeah,
that's a really, really good point, Mark, to make. Actually, of course. I think
and you can put it in your will as well.
Do you know what? That's something I'd never think to put in, but you're 100% right. I mean, all these memories and stuff like that, you want them to be able to have access to. We've all got our baby pictures from when we're kids, and stuff like that. And now all of ours are a bit more online, so it is really, really important. So I think that's something that's really important to mention. So Mark, with your after Katherine passed away, and obviously had all this to deal with, another obviously issue that I'm really passionate with. I suffered myself with postnatal depression, but any type of mental health and stuff. Obviously, you touch on that when you said your mental health. Can you tell us a bit more about how you felt and how you managed to get support, or if you did, etc.?
Yeah, well, I didn't really get support straight away. I kind of didn't know where to turn for help, to be honest. And it's kind of like a bit, when a man's driving around in a car. I don't know if I touched on this before, but he gets lost and he doesn't want to ask for directions because he's a bit too proud. He wants to kind of find his own way. I don't know if you've ever experienced that with a partner, especially a male partner. It's a bit of a male sort of thing to go. I was a bit like that as a sort of analogy, but and everyone around me who was that close didn't really know, how I was supposed to grieve, let alone, help me. So for me to kind of find support, I kind of had to do a lot of research myself. And the really difficult side of it was the only way of explaining it is when, let's put it in this terms. When you have a baby, you have lots of scans, don't you? You have lots of checkups. People, you go to the doctors, you see your midwife, you got your, antenatal classes and all this sort of stuff. And then the baby's born, and then you go to more checkups. You get a health visitor come in to check your child, make sure you're okay. You get all this sort of stuff. That's life coming into the world, yeah?
Yeah.
So when life goes out, as soon as I walked out of the hospital, that was it. Like, no one came to check up on me. No one came to check up on my daughter. I ended up ringing up the health visitor saying, what's going on? I've got this red book here. What do I do with it? When are you coming down? And so
you know what? That is such a good way to put that. I mean, I've never ever thought of it like that. And God,
so I ended up going to my GP, asking him for help, and he was just giving me leaflets. I was like,
I need to take these tablets.
Yeah. So that was kind of like my picture of like life coming in and life going out, and what the sort of help was. So what I started doing, I started like, as I was going through all these like mental episodes, I started like writing down how I was feeling and stuff like that. And that's kind of like where my blog started coming from, because I started writing down all these sort of mental episodes on how I was feeling. And I was kind of like capturing like my raw grief at the time. And the only way I can kind of explain that is I wanted to write these sort of notes down of what I'm feeling, because I knew over time they'd be a little bit diluted if I wrote them in retrospect, further down.
Yeah.
I probably feel a little bit different. I even do now to what I did a few years ago. I guess you can probably compare it to labour. If a woman's in labour, if you ask them to write down every inch of pain that they ever had giving birth, they probably never have a child again.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? So, but now they'll probably go, oh yeah, it was fine. I mean, I'm not one to say that. I've never experienced it, but
well,
that's
they have more, don't they? A lot of the time,
exactly,
so it must be.
It's always worth it.
Yeah.
So I did that, and obviously, I wanted to they sort of morphed into posts, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get this sort of almost sort of experience out there, and
good for you.
It kind of helped me deal with like the stages of grief, because I always found like I articulate myself better in detail when I'm writing stuff, and talking was hard for me at the time. And obviously, conversation with people about death or grief, it's really hard for people to talk to you, especially if it's someone else's grief rather than your own. And I found I was having these same conversations with people all the time. How are you? Blah blah blah, and all this. And I'm like, I've just talked to someone about this. I don't have to do it again. So I started putting it online. I started putting it online.
That's a good idea.
People start ringing me, and because sometimes I'd written something like 4 or 5 months ago, and then I'd post it. I get people who live far away ringing me up, going, "Mark, are you okay?" And I'd be like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? I've just read your blog post. I'm like, yeah, that was 5 months ago. Oh, okay. And all this.
Moved on now. Yeah, no, I know exactly. I mean, I imagine with the grief, you never fully move on, but I imagine that it's a case of with yours especially, it's very different. I think women are very much now, I feel, they're in touch with the mental health and speaking out, etc. But I think men are starting to more and more, which is amazing. And like when you mentioned your mental health and stuff, I think it's so good that you did that, because hopefully someone will find that blog and be able to read it. Someone in a similar situation and stuff. I mean, did you find anyone similar in a similar situation? I mean, how do you find these people?
But I actually got, as I started writing the blog post, it was only about 3 or 4 months after I started getting people interested and started emailing me and commenting and things like that. See, all I ever wanted to do at the beginning was to speak to another man in my position, and just sort of say to me, like, it's going to be all right. This is what I did. And then, that's what all I wanted but I ended up finding like people from all walks of life. I had older men who had been in my position saying, oh yeah, this is what to expect. This is how you might feel in the future. I had school teachers who were supporting kids who were bereaved, who had lost a parent in their class, asking me questions. I had the best one that I ever have found. There was 2 young girls, they must have been in their 20s, who contacted me and said they lost their mum when they were babies, and this is what they went through, how they felt. And and one of them was really thankful that they'd read my blog, because they said that their dad didn't ever open up to them about the loss of the mother. So it was nice to read another man's perspective to sort of get an inkling. So it was all sorts of different walks of life.
Because I suppose I was thinking then, when I asked you that, I thought of other dads in the same position, but actually for another mum in the same position, knowing someone else is going, but also, as a child, reading about that, God, it must have helped so many people.
Yeah, so I ended up getting a lot of advice off other people. It wasn't just me giving it out. I was getting loads back, and I ended up contacting one guy who lived quite close to me and still keep in touch with now. He's sort of in the same boat as me. And I also started writing I wanted the blog to be like a narrative for my daughter as well. That's why I wanted to keep it as it was, and let her sort of use that when she's older. It might help her explain a lot of the stuff that was going on at the time. But in terms of finding other people as well, I started finding a bit more after 12 months about a charity support company called Widowhood and Young.
Oh yeah.
I joined them, and obviously the clues in the name. What they stand for.
I was going to say, what's it about?
They catered for everything that I needed as well.
How did you find them, Mark? Because I imagine it's quite difficult to find groups and stuff that.
Yeah, you can put young widower in and things like that on Google. That's what I was doing at the time, and I was getting all these different sort of charities coming up, and I was looking at ones for child bereavement as well, looking at like Winston's Wish and Child Bereavement UK and a few of the others. But Widowed and Young kept popping up all the time, and I started reading up what they were about and stuff, and I wasn't quite ready to go to that level of talking to strangers at that point. But when I got to the 12-month point, I just joined, and I ended up finding like they had all sorts of support, like sort of open forums on the website, but I found the social media element better. You could join their Facebook groups, their private lockdown Facebook groups, and there's all different categories. You can go into regional categories, so you can go into the Northwest, and you can even narrow it down to your county. So if you wanted like Lancashire or Merseyside or Greater Manchester and stuff like that, and you end up finding people, pretty close to you, and they usually have sort of like area managers, but like area network leaders sort of thing, who volunteers who will set up, peer-to-peer support, whether it's a night out at the pub or whether it's a picnic in a park or somewhere like that. There's all sorts of stuff going on, and they have an AGM event and stuff. So there's loads of opportunities to sort of meet with other people, young with children or whatever their scenario is.
That's great, because I suppose everyone's in a different stage of their grief, and some people might not want to. Some people might be reading and not ready to reach out to people, but just to know that I imagine that you're not alone and other people go through this is a massive thing. I mean, how were your family and friends like? I mean, before when I'd spoken to you, mentioned like at work and stuff. Did you find it quite difficult, kind of being you at work and stuff, or how did your personality and stuff change after all that?
I'm a bit of an open book, as you can probably tell. So people started like avoiding me in work. Like I was walking down a corridor and people would like, I've just got I could tell they were pretending, I've just got to go in this office or go in, and I'd go, oi, come here, like come and talk to me, and they'd be like, they didn't know what to say. And I'd be like, it's okay, like you can talk to me, I'm still Mark, and then people would say, how are you? And I'd be like, I'm still here, I try and make it a bit lighter for them. Of course, mental health, they don't know what's going on inside my head. I've got this big deflector shield going up with a personality and being happy, and so for them, they probably just thought, he's all right, he's managing. Okay. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on, in my head, and
I think that's dead. I mean, I'm very much like you are, Mark, and I like quite a few of my friends are like, and people almost like you can put on this persona that everything's absolutely fine, and no one really knows otherwise. So then, then your friends like, they're okay, and then they leave them to it, and then behind closed doors, it's a really different story. So I think it's so important to speak about that as well. So no, that's amazing.
It was a little, for me, it was a little bit like if anyone's watched Ricky Gervais in Afterlife.
Oh my God, I freaking love that program.
How you perceive male grief, is exactly how Ricky Gervais sort of acts that character out, where he stores his emotions and he releases out, his hatred on the public, and he goes home and he suffers in isolation, and the only thing that's keeping him alive is the dog, and that was kind of like me. I was like going home, and then my dog was my daughter, it was like the only thing that was keeping me on track was keeping her. She needed me more than she ever needed me in her life, so but that it's weird, men, how men sort of perceive grief and things like that. It's all this like be strong and don't cry and don't show weakness and all this like man up, where it's I always think it's how you're kind of molded from a young age, from your parents and things like that. Because I always remember, my dad didn't really show that much emotion to us. We didn't talk about grief or loss or anything like that.
I don't think any one of our age groups dads really, I don't know any of my friends or any one of our dads that ever are quite that show much emotion really. I can't think of anyone, and I think it's probably the way they were brought up as well, and I think we've got a time now to make a bit of a difference and change that. You don't get any education about it in school. You're just told that you die, when in reality it's probably as natural as giving birth or having, being born. Because it's one thing that we've got in common with everyone, that we're all born and we're all going to die. But I remember thinking about myself, because when my daughter was around, I didn't show any emotion even as she was growing up. But when she went to bed,
I would be downstairs crying my eyes out, you know. And I thought to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, you know, I need to start showing her it's okay to show emotion, because as she's grown up into a toddler, and once she starts understanding what's happened and things like that, I wanted to encourage her, you know, as a child. I wanted her to grow up to be the child I wanted to be. I wanted to show emotions. I didn't want her to like lie to me how she felt, you know, and go upstairs to her room and suffer in isolation sort of thing. So I didn't want her to grow up as an anxious, you know, unconfident child. So I think it was really important as a man, well, for men in general, to start taking that step. You know, that was kind of like I'll tell you where it all started from. While I was grieving, oh my God. It's just come back to me now in my head. I was watching a football game while I was, you know, middle of the night. I think it was a Manchester derby or something. I think Manchester City won or something.
Yeah.
And these fully grown men were hugging each other because the team had won, and they were crying. And I was thinking to myself, what are they doing? Like, they're crying at a football match. I can't even cry in front of my daughter. It's like,
yeah, when your wife's died.
I couldn't even cry at the funeral, you know. So I had this revelation where I thought, I need to start showing my daughter it's okay to be sad, you know. So now if she sees me crying, she'll ask me, and I tell her why, you know, I feel sad and all this, and she's like, oh, sorry, Daddy, and give me a hug and all that, you know. So those little things, you know, it's probably like being the softer side of being a father, I guess.
Yeah. But it's hard because you have to play like mum. I mean, for so long you had to play mum and dad, and it's like, God, I imagine. I mean, I don't know about you, but when my dad used to tell me off, I used to absolutely shit myself. And when my mum used to tell me off, I'd be like, oh God, I hear it all the time, not bothered, kind of thing. But I imagine having like one parent constantly, like, it's quite difficult for you and you know, them as well, because like, you know, it's hard, isn't it? If dad says no, you'd go to mum, which, you know, she didn't have that option, kind of thing.
Well, if I'm honest, I reckon I was probably the worst mum in history for Margot. I had this absolute male approach and everything. Like, you know, the house was like a military camp. There's routine. I know kids and babies love routines, but it was everywhere, you know. And I probably wasn't a great mum, but I know I was a great dad. But like, I kind of more recently now Margot's a toddler, I kind of try a bit more softer in my approach to sort of, you know, see things sort of like through her eyes, and I don't shut her down when she's talking to me. And she's quite a strong-willed child now, and you know, she knows what she wants, and she's always wanted to be in charge of herself. And you know, so I kind of play little games with her. Sort of, I kind of get what I want, but I do it in a nice way.
Oh, I do. Oh, I know that. You know what I've discovered during this time?
Go on.
Like, I say to George, like, oh, Mummy doesn't want you watching TV now. Don't watch TV for the next 10 minutes. Oh, but now I do want to watch TV. And I'm like, brilliant, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's all it's reverse psychology. But do you know, Mark, I think every parent has the same thing where no matter whether you're a mum, whether you're dad or whatever, you're, oh, I could have done that a bit better, or I could have done that a bit better. But do you know what? How amazing have you done, like, with her? Is she 4 now, isn't she?
She's 4 the beginning of August.
She's 4, like you said, she's strong-willed, she's going to school soon, and like, you should be so proud, like, of how far you've come being a mum and a dad. That's amazing, that you've done all that. I mean, so I mean, going back to where you were before, sorry, it's only, I want to help other people that are listening to this in the same situation. So if someone was listening to this and they were in the same situation, what would your advice be to them?
I mean, everyone grieves in their own way. You know, it's like, you can't just like lose someone a couple of weeks later going, oh, I'm going to go and sort myself out. You know, give yourself time to grieve. Like, just sort of let it take you. Don't prolong grief, because whether you prolong it, you know, with 5 years, 10 years, whatever, it's always going to catch up to you. And if you don't let grief take you, you start suffering with anxiety. Anxiety is a stress, like stress is a killer, you know, things like that. Try not to turn to other things to numb the pain. Don't medicate yourself with alcohol. Try and seek help mentally, or even it's just talking to people using, like, the charity way, if you just want to talk to people who are in the same boat as you. And kind of reach out as well. There's quite a lot of people on the internet now, even more so men, more recently in the last few years, who are out there actually providing information and willing to listen to other people. But there's lots of charities out there though, but definitely don't just suffer alone. That's the hardest part when you're grieving. Like, you feel like you're the only one in that position, and it's almost like you're in another country and no one speaks your language, you know?
I suppose it's something that you don't think of day to day, like those kind of things. But actually, you're 100% right. Like, you're in it on your own, and
Yeah.
it must be so difficult because your family is you want to be strong for everyone around you as well.
Yeah.
At the same time, like Catherine's parents, your own, and your little girl and stuff like that, and it's just, oh God, I just can't.
Even for people supporting someone who's lost someone. I mean, some of the stuff I mentioned before about, you don't have to ring up and say, ring me when you need me. You can go around, you can be practical, you can do things for them around the house or flat, wherever they live, and you can bring meals for them and stuff. But even just checking up on them, like, every now and again, and even sometimes when you do check up on them, they might not want to speak to you, or they might, not want to answer the door, but they'll know that you've been there, and maybe when you do go around, don't feel uncomfortable to talk about the person they've lost, because over time, that's the only way they stay alive, is when you talk about them, you keep them alive in your head and your heart,
Yeah, I think it's instead of, because otherwise sometimes I imagine it must feel like people are just ignoring the issue sometimes. Like, like you can go from, speaking to people all the time at work, and then all of a sudden they're like not even speaking to you, and you're like, well, do you not realise what's just happened to me, kind of thing,
Yeah.
And I imagine speaking it through does make quite a big difference. So tell us about your little girl now then, because I'd love to hear about her.
Well, she starts school in September. She's currently just gone back to nursery now. Yeah, she's fun.
George isn't at nursery at the moment.
Oh, really?
I wish he was.
The nursery's been brilliant, to be honest. Actually, recommendation to her. They've done so much with her as well. They kind of have her 3 days a week, and I mean, she's brought on a lot by them. She's made some good friends and stuff, but obviously try and do what we can at home and that. But Margot's good. She's happy. She's a proper Disney kid. I don't know if that's my own fault, because I kind of like some of the Disney movies and stuff like that, but everything's up Disney now. Princess outfits. I tried to get her into football. I started taking her to Little Kickers. Went to Little Kickers. She was the only girl there. I was like 10, but she held her own. She was good, and she just said to me one day, "Daddy, I don't like football. I want to go to ballet." So I was like, okay, let's go. So ballet morphed into street dancing and all this other stuff. So
that's amazing.
It's been really good.
Does she ask about her mum at all, or do you kind of do you tell her about her, or
not yet? I've made the decision that I'm not going to open that conversation until she understands the words like never, ever, death, and things like that. Because if I start trying to explain it now, she won't understand. And I want her to know the truth. I want her to tell her what happened, to a T. I don't want to. It's not like I'm going to tell her about Father Christmas and 10 years later tell her, oh no, that doesn't exist. This is what. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be as it is. So I'm waiting for her to, maybe when she's 5, possibly going up to 6, we'll have that conversation. And I'm just going to be honest with her. I mean, I want to try and get it in as early as possible, so she's got it in her mind as she grows up, and it's not this. I'd hate to tell her when she's 12, 13, when she's going through her own changes, and I go, boom, deal with this as well. It's like I want her to have it as part of her growing up, you know, and she can ask me questions. I mean, I've managed to save loads of stuff of Catherine's, like bits of clothes and teddies and things that she had. So all these photos they've got of them together, I've kind of put the photo with the clothes and the toy at the time and wrapped it up. So she's got these little sort of time capsules, so she's got these things that'll be, special to her. There's little things in place. I feel like I've got a plan. I feel confident going forward. I don't feel worried. I'm just worried from the emotional roller coaster, really. That's about it.
No, I think you only know what's best, and I get that. I think you don't want to kind of raise things without having a question first, because she's happy, it's just, you will know when the time is right, I imagine.
Yeah.
So where are you now, Mark, in your world? Are you still blogging, or are you kind of away from that a bit more now?
I kind of stopped about a year ago. I kind of thought I'd written enough. If I was writing about stuff now, I'd be writing about other people, because I kind of didn't have anything else I wanted to put on the table. And I didn't want to just make it about me and going, oh, look at me, how happy I am now and all this. It was sort of, because grief never ends, really. And I kind of thought, I've been doing this for a while. It's enough. And I kind of decided to focus my energy on, I've been writing a book for like the last 9 months. And,
amazing.
And that was coming close to the final draft before COVID-19 started. So I'm hoping I'm going to pick that back up. I actually have my book on a hard drive. I've left my hard drive in a bag in work, and obviously not allowed to go back into work. So that's my excuse at the minute, and it's a true one as well. But at this moment in time, I've been doing that. Obviously, Margot and I are obviously laughing more than we've cried over the last few years, and I'm just living an interesting life now, kind of moving forward.
Yeah. And how old are you now, Mark? Sorry, shouldn't ask a man his age.
You can. I've just turned 40 this year, January. So.
Right. So the book, is that all about your story then, or what?
Yeah.
What's it about?
It's kind of a lot of what I've been talking about now. It's just a little bit of philosophy on loss, love, and hope. Sort of. I don't know. Grief's so personal to someone. I kind of just wanted to share my experience and just talk about it on a much broader range that maybe everyone could get something from. There's a few books out there that I've read, and they kind of inspired me because they kind of helped me massively. And I thought, I could do something on my flavour, and maybe that might help someone else. I'm not in it to make money. It's. I just want to get something out there. And again, the whole reason I'm doing it is for Margot to have that, because I'm obviously going to be filling it with a lot of memories and history of Katherine as well. And it might be something for her to read that she's always got. God forbid anything happens to me.
I know. The thing is, I imagine, does that not make you... I mean, God, I've got terrible health anxiety as it is. I think everyone who's listening has heard me say that on every single bloody episode of this because of the people I'm interviewing. But did that affect how you feel, as in with your own health? Are you a bit more aware of life and death now, or...?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of, obviously, tomorrow's never promised, is it now? When you go through stuff, you kind of think, I could be dead tomorrow, like, let's just seize the day and crack on. But I don't know, Margot asked me this question the other day. I was putting her to bed, and she said to me, Daddy, what happens when you die? Because we've been having this conversation about life and death, and because she surprised me one day. There was a dead beetle in the garden, and she said, "Oh, what's wrong with that beetle, Daddy?" And I said, "Oh, it's having a sleep." She went, "Don't be silly, it's dead." And I went, "Oh, here we go." Like, so we had this conversation now anyway. So she said, "What happens when you die?" And I said, I said, "Well, can you remember what happened before you were born?" She went, "No." And I went, "Well, there's death. That's death for you. You won't know. You will never know." She went, "Oh, okay." So I thought, where did that come from? That's a really good
way to say it.
So I started thinking about it, and I thought, I don't really fear death, because I don't really remember what happened before life, so that's okay,
Yeah.
So it's just the start and end point, in it, and everything in the middle is just fun and games, isn't it, really?
Oh yeah. Well, my son's the same age as Margot, and honestly, he talks about death all the time. I don't know why. He keeps saying to me, like, "Mummy, are you going to die?" I'm like, "Yeah, I hope not."
Yeah, for a long time.
Nana's very old. Is she going to die? I'm just like, no. And Granddad's very old. Is he going to die? I'm just like, these people aren't even old. Just leave me alone.
Well, they don't have any filter, do they? In their monologue, so they just go up to people and say, "You're going to die soon."
Well, I know. Well, the other day we were actually in Morrison's. We were doing a bit of shopping, and this guy came over. Well, actually, to be fair, I'm lying there. Well, it was before lockdown, just to let you know. But this guy came over, and he was like, "Oh, hello, little boy." He said, "What's that old dinosaur doing?" I thought, oh my God, for God's sake, I can't cope with this. It's ridiculous. I know, they just come out with anything, don't they? But
kids are great.
They're at a good age.
Good one this morning. Margot jumps into bed and looks at me, and I literally just woke up. She's like, "You've not brushed your teeth, have you?" And I'm like, "Margot, come on." She's just saying I've got bad breath, and I was like, "I'm just woken up."
Well, my son said Oh, they don't. My son had said to me the other day, I've got orange teeth. So I went and got some teeth.
Oh,
I was like, yeah, I know I've had a lot of coffee, but never
yeah,
mind.
give you a complexion.
I know, yeah, exactly. So,
Brilliant.
Mark, tell us where people can find you, and also this fabulous charity that you mentioned as well, the group that you mentioned. If you
Yeah,
can tell
sure.
people a bit more about that, and then that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So my blog's at norainnorainbows.net. If you want to find out why I called it that, read the blog. People
Yeah,
go, what does
yeah,
that mean?
exactly. Yeah.
And obviously there's about 3 or 4 pages of posts on there. If you go to page 1, obviously, because it starts from the latest post, you can start from the beginning sort of thing. If you want to learn a bit more about what happened to Katherine, you can go on the About Me section. Yeah, in terms of Widowed and Young, if you want looking for more bereavement support, it's just, again, widowedandyoung.org.uk. And you can go in there, you can read up on what the membership status is, how to join, and things like that. And it's got information on everything about the charity. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. I figured out, within a night what it was all about, where the best places were to go. And yeah, and there's people on there as well. When you get in there, you can ask questions straight away, like, I'm looking for a group on this, or trying to find people doing, young adults with children, or, cancer victims and things like that.
Wow.
So
So there's somewhere for people to look at
there's all
and
sorts
connect.
of subgroups.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. So, Mark, then, it's been amazing talking to you. Your journey just it's so sad, but also inspiring how well you've done. Like with your little girl and everything, it melts my heart. It really makes me feel quite emotional. You should be so proud. Like,
just being a parent, anyone would do the same, I reckon.
No, but yeah, no, I know, but it's a really sad story, but it's an honour. I'd like to speak to you, because for a gentleman to open up, and in a world where people don't as much, especially as men, it's very important. So hopefully this podcast will be able to hopefully help other people as well, and also raise awareness that life is today, and we don't know what's around the corner. So thank you so much.
No problem.
Oh, thank you.